Hi, founder fans. Jason here, and today's founder is James Manning, who was a president, the first president of Brown University. So, James Manning graduated from Princeton, New Jersey, and he was then asked to move over to Rhode Island. You see, Rhode Island had a large collection of Baptists, and he had just become a Baptist minister. And well, those Baptists in Rhode Island had just started a college, and that college's name was the College in the English Colony of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations. It's a mouthful. It's a real mouthful. Today we know the college in the English colony of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations as Brown University. It's a lot simpler, and that's actually because one of Manning's contemporaries, the Brown family, contributed a lot of money to establishing it. Either way, he goes there. He's chosen as first president president of Brown University, and he ends up spending the better part of 30 years running Brown University. He also helps oversee construction of the first buildings at Brown University. Now, this is just after the Boston Tea Party. After the Boston Tea Party, you get the Massachusetts Punishment Act, which essentially closes the port of Boston. And there are all these sailors in Boston that now can't do their sailing, and they need work. And Manning provides work for many of the people who were left without because of their participation in the Boston Tea Party to help build the buildings of Brown University, specifically usually shipbuilders who were accustomed to building, not just seamen who were used to being sailors. The shipbuilders are pretty good at constructing ships, so they can just build squares instead of round bottoms, one would presume. So, excuse me. He also said to have made a trip to Philadelphia about this time to try and convince the Continental Congress of how important it is to keep religious liberty. Certain denominations of Christianity were nervous that when things played out in this war that was going on, it would end up that they'd decide there'd just be one nation, much like the Church of England had just the Church of England. Many of the people who were not what we would call Anglicans were a little bit nervous that they would take over. And Manning helped provide the impetus, one of the many, many people who provided the impetus for the freedom of religion that would come later. But before that, James Manning is, running Brown University. And then in 1780, well, the French come to town, because the French are coming to help the Americans, and they come to Rhode Island. They spend some time in Rhode Island. Now, they're there for over a year before they actually journey south to take part in the victory at Yorktown. And while they're in Rhode Island, well, they need a place to stay. And James Manning offers Brown University, again, at this time called the College in Rhode Island, Providence Plantations. He offers Brown University to the French army, and they take him up on that. And in fact, it was the college's main hall. James lets them turn that into a military hospital. Usually this is kind of frowned upon, but no, James was a patriot, and he wanted the French to be comfortable in America, because that way they could do a good job helping the Americans. So after the war, he's actually chosen by Rhode Island to go to the Continental Congress, which at that point was called we refer to as the Congress of the Confederation. So while he's there, he becomes associated with James Madison. The two work together. They serve together on the Grand Committee. They discuss at length changes needed for the Articles of Confederation. And he supports this. So when James Madison later writes the United States Constitution, or helps write the United States Constitution, James Manning is very fervently in support of the Constitution. Now, he's actually invited, despite being in Rhode Island all this time, he becomes such a big supporter of the national government that when the Massachusetts Ratification Convention is called into action, and Massachusetts, Rhode Island takes a long time. Washington's president for like a year and a half before Rhode Island joins the Union. But Massachusetts is necessary. It's one of the bigger colonies, one of the wealthier ones, really important to independence. And James Manning is asked to come and say the closing prayer at the Ratification Convention just before they do the final vote. And his sermon is filled with such patriotic rhetoric and such fervent support for the Constitution that it is said that he sways a few votes and helps pass the Constitution at the Massachusetts Ratification Convention. Now, we can never know what was in the mind of the people who were listening to Manning and then voted, but it certainly seems that he was able to help convince a few people who didn't know which way they should be convinced. And that is the story, a very brief story, of James Manning, an early president of Brown University. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you hit like and subscribe for American Revolution all week long.